Okay. Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Pretty good. Apparently it's not connected to my Bluetooth. Um,
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Cool. Can you see me? I can only see you, so
Yes, I see you in this little like box.
Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna do the screen share because that worked pretty well last time. I felt like.
Cool.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to assignments. And I pulled up the articles. I'm just gonna get the Zoom assignment down so we make sure we get everything.
Okay.
Oh no, I already did that.
It should be that one, yeah. Practice questioning and listening.
Perfect. Okay, so did you read the articles on your own or were you just planning on
Yeah, just like improving listening and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. The listening skills, reflecting, and questioning skills?
Yeah. So I've gone through them.
Cool. So it looks like,
Just gonna pull.
yeah, go for it. Let's
see.
We'll let you know.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So this is just discussing those basically and practicing applying them, right?
Okay, yeah, that's what I got from it. So we could probably just go through like each article and like talk about maybe what we liked from them, and then we could give like our questions, like our 3 questions. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
That works for me. Which article do you want to start on?
We could just start on the listening one since that's the first one.
Okay.
So this is it. And I was just like, I just skimmed them. So I thought all these points are really good.
I'd agree.
Let's see. I guess we can just start like at the top part and just maybe say like
What our question is for that?
Yeah, like 2 or 3 of them that like stuck out to you and your questions for that, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see. I really like the notice other speaking styles and like how fast they are, how soft they are. Because if someone comes in and they're talking like super fast, you can tell they're in a rush more or they're stressed, and that can be a good indicator. And sometimes if you just sit there and go super slow, you're gonna just frustrate them even more. So I guess a question for that would be, how have you applied like reading people's speaking style to make your tutoring sessions better?
Yeah, okay. So like you were saying, like if someone's talking like super fast or feeling rushed, like obviously that means they're probably stressed. So if that happens, a way I've applied that is like not so much like just diving into the material right away, maybe like talking with them like about like, okay, how is your studying going so far? Like, how do you feel about this class? Like kind of talking to them like more about their feelings rather than just like material right off the bat, because that could just overwhelm them even more. And then obviously if they come in like super confident and stuff and like, okay, like let's get down to business, you know, then just kind of match that and just go with like whatever vibe you're getting from them. So
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, did you have anything to add to that?
I think the only thing would be with speaking style, you can sometimes, like if someone comes in, they're speaking a normal pace, and then you say something like, do you understand? They're like, yeah.
Yeah, then you know they
like,
don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also if they do it too fast. You're like, do you understand? They're like, yeah. Like, of course, why wouldn't I understand? Some people get defensive, so that can be a good indicator.
That's a really good point to bring up. I never thought of that.
Mm.
Yeah, that's really good. I think for me, a really important one is letting the speaker finish each major point they have. Because when someone's like starting to get something, they start to talk like really slowly, and I'm like one that like would just go in and like finish their sentence for I'm like, oh yeah, this is what you're thinking, like, well, let me explain it to you, like, I know this, like, let me show you. It's important for them to like be able to talk out what they're like, what's going on in their head, so that they can like come to an understanding by themselves and not like just hear it from me. So that one's
Fair.
important. And like sometimes, like this says, like sometimes you do need to interrupt to like make sure that you're like getting all the information correctly, but there's like tactful ways to do that. So I thought that was a really good point in this. Yeah, so no, I'm trying to think of a question for that one. What's the best tactic that you've found to like hold yourself back from like interrupting whenever you feel like the urge to?
Sometimes I use the little like interjectory phrases. So like, yeah, that makes sense. Because then I'm like, my mouth wants to move, but that way I'm not going, yeah, and this is how you do it.
Yeah, so you're like allowing yourself to feel engaged, like keeping yourself engaged with like little things, but actually like making it about them. Yeah. I like that a lot. Mm-hmm.
So you're not like full on interrupting them, but
Right.
it's enough that
you're listening.
they are able to feel like you're paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's super good. I like that. Cool. And then I don't know. We can pick things from like, we can talk about like how to make sure that they're listening to us. I like the one number 7, asking them to like repeat the main points, like especially at the end of a tutoring session, like being like, okay, what did you get out of this? What did you learn? Because then that not only like gives you feedback about like what you did well and what you didn't do well, but it like helps them too, helps them like be like, oh yeah, I did learn this, or like it makes them think like, okay, when I go home, I'm going to study more of this because I remember talking about it and not like understanding it or knowing it.
That's fair.
Yeah. What do you like down here?
I think this number 3, the speaking too slowly rather than too quickly, because I have a tendency, if I'm like, oh yeah, and you do this and this and this and this and this and this, and to me it doesn't seem like it's too fast because it's like my normal talking rate, but if it's new information, it's going to be too fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a point where if they're totally getting lost, it might be just because you just threw 5 things at them in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And they needed it in a minute.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I have a tendency to do that too. So maybe just having some mental checks with yourself about your speaking rate would help. Because I'm like, I hope you got that.
So I think the pulling in your point 7, asking them to rephrase it, even if it's the main points from a little part of your meeting,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure they understand it and they didn't skip an important piece.
Yeah,
could be helpful.
For sure. For sure.
Okay.
And then these were just interesting. We don't need to like talk about them necessarily unless you would like to.
Well, a good question would be, do you think you were a poor listener or an effective listener currently?
I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I think I definitely like have some good things and some bad things. I would say, yeah.
Okay, what is one that you really want to improve on?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now. Probably the second one on the poor listening. Because after I've tutored the same thing a couple of times, it's hard for me to like stay engaged and like teaching it over and over. Like when a ton of people come in for anatomy because they get extra credit for it. And so everyone's like, oh, let's go over page 23. Like, I don't understand page 23. And that's like everyone. And so sometimes I start to tune them out because I'm like, okay, I've already heard this today, you know, but like, I need to make sure like they're always my number one priority, like no matter how many times I've heard it today.
That's fair.
What do you think?
So in your struggle of just the same page or the same monotony over and over again, one thing that I've done, if I have like this person, I've tutored math, and I've had it where they come in with the exact same textbook, exact same problem, and I'm like, oh, I've done this one for the last 3 people. I know how to do this singular problem. It's this answer I have it memorized. Like,
Yeah.
but I found one way to help me step back is I let them introduce the problem to me. So instead of going, oh yeah, 23, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
Or I
It's
just helped this
like,
last person.
what do
Like,
you
okay,
not
well,
know?
what's 23 about?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Like, because then I'm not like repeating the same thing over and over because what one person understands like might be different than what another person understands. So that comes back to like adapting to what they need rather than assuming I know what they need. That's really good.
That's fair.
Yeah. What about you? Anything you could improve on?
I think mine would be like the overstimulating. Because like being a poor listener, I'm like, oh, I want to interject here. Oh, I want to interject here. Like, oh, I want to throw this thought in here. Because I just have like the thought pop up, and I think it tends to like overstimulate other people, but it also, my brain's so used to like firing out ideas, it's not good at just like sitting back and be like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Right. Yeah. Respect the learning process. It's hard sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I'm trying to think of.
Those are just a bunch of other sources.
Cool. Yeah, so I think we're good on this one. Sweet. Okay, and then we'll move on to the reflecting one. That's okay.
There you go. So what part of this article stood out to you?
I think mostly like, I never thought like reflecting was like crazy important, you know, because I'm always like, oh, like we're just having like a conversation. Like I don't stop back and like, or sit back and like think about like what's going on, which is super important. So I was like, oh, this is actually a thing. But let's see, it says reflecting is a process of paraphrasing your history. Yeah, I think what I liked best about it is that sometimes like in my tutoring sessions, I tend to like take over and not like encourage them to keep going and them to keep talking and them to like keep getting their ideas out there. So I think it's important, like these 3 check marks, like to let them hear their own thoughts, focus on what they say and feel, and like to let them know that you're like listening to them and like trying to like see where they're coming from, because that'll help you like first of all slow down and be able to help them the best, but then that'll also make them like feel more comfortable and feel more like apt to keep talking about like what they're struggling with. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
That does. It's just allowing them to almost work through the problem on their own, is what you're saying?
yeah,
right?
basically like giving them time and giving them space too is like really important. Sometimes it feels a little awkward because you're just like, okay, like, so, but like it's important to give them time and space to like be able to like reflect on what they're saying, and then that allows the tutor to reflect on what they're saying as well. So
That's true.
what do you think?
I really like if you scroll down a little bit on the page. So mirroring is something that I was taught in a tutoring class a little while ago. Oh, go up a little. It's right above paraphrasing. So mirroring, in this case, it's talking more about like with words, but I was taught in tutoring it's also really important to mirror with your body language, because if someone's super like excited, it's good to like, yeah, keep that excitement. The only time you don't really want to mirror with body language is if someone's like sitting there like, I am so down, like depressed. You don't want to
You want to do the opposite.
act depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, just not extremes, but yeah. Um, but yeah, how have you ever used mirroring either for words or body language in your tutoring sessions?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that. I don't know if I ever like have consciously recognized it. I'm sure I have. Like I'm sure I have like mirrored people's tones before because I even do that just in normal conversation. Um, but yeah, I could see where it could be bad if like the students really like you were saying like I don't want to do this. Like I could see myself like kind of like trying to match that, which that would obviously not be good. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. What about you? Do you use the technique a lot?
So I usually use it when I have a disengaged student because my first year tutoring, we had to take like a 3-credit class at my old college where we just went over how he wanted us to tutor and stuff.
Yeah.
And one thing he taught us was if a student comes in and they want you to do all the work for them, you need to disengage a little bit to get them to re-engage. So if
Oh,
they
interesting.
like writing, if they come in and just hand me a paper and then just slouch back and be like, just write a few things that need fixed, and then pull out their phone and are sitting here like, yep, you know,
Yeah, then you would
then
then you would need to kind of pull back and be like, wait, okay, like show me what you need help with, like exactly, and you know.
yeah. And he said you can even like slouch a little, like, match how they're sitting, and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, so the paper, And if they don't do anything, they eventually only look like, oh crap, no, I need help, and like sit up and be like, dude,
Really?
why are
That's
like,
so
okay, I'll be
interesting.
active now.
Yeah, that's interesting that
So
people like when you match it, they notice like what they're doing probably, huh? And then that causes them to change it. That would make sense too. I didn't even think about it like that.
yeah.
That's
So
really smart. Yeah,
that's one way that I've used.
yeah, that totally works. I like that a lot because that actually like kind of happened to me. Like these girls were like, "We just have a bunch of questions about this PowerPoint. We just don't get it." And then they were just like sitting there like they're like, "We don't get this, so could you tell us what it is? We don't get this either. Can you tell us what it is?" And I was just sitting there like, "Okay." It's like it just seems like they just want all the answers to like the questions, but they don't actually want to learn. So yeah, that's really good. I liked it.
In a situation like that, you could even be like, well, what do you think it is? Like, how do you interpret this slide? What do you understand?
Yeah, and I was just
Throw
sitting there
questions
like
at
trying
them.
to answer the questions, but I need to do that. Yeah, just throw it back at them and be like, well, what did you get from class? You know, like, or what did you think about this?
Yeah. The only hard part with that is just making sure you throw it back in a friendly tone if they're frustrating you a little.
Yeah, be like, what did you think about this? They're like, geez, okay. Yeah, no, definitely in a friendly tone. Yes. I mean, I'm sure they have like great intentions and everything. It's just sometimes hard, like frustrating for the tutors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
Yeah, because sometimes I feel like, oh yeah, the other question I had for you was, what do you do like when you just like straight up don't know the answer, like you have no idea?
you admit it.
You just say,
And
sorry.
then so you don't want to just like, I don't personally want to just say, hey, I have no idea. I'll say something more like, hey, I don't fully understand this concept, but that's okay. Let's figure it out together. And then I'll go through and take study habits I've used. So like flipping through the textbook, pulling out Google. And it actually, I think it's almost more beneficial because it's me showing them a new way how to find answers.
Yeah.
So when they get stuck, they can better help themselves in the future.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
But
It's just I have a hard time when the student like asks me questions, but they don't bring in like any resources. Like they don't bring in a textbook, they don't even bring in like the PowerPoint from the teacher. They just have like straight up questions like in their head about it. And like if I don't know, like I'm like, okay, like we can go to Google, which I guess is fine, but
so one thing you can do with that is even if you don't know the answer at that moment, you can straight up be like, hey, let me take a note of that question. I'm going to go discuss it with the teacher, get the best answer for you. If you could bring your textbook and come back tomorrow, I would love to help you solve this.
smart. Yeah.
Because it shows you're willing to put time and effort into the student, even if it's a 5-minute conversation or an email sent to the teacher really fast or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also makes them do something proactive. So it makes them be more proactive in their learning because they need to come back and they need to bring their textbook or the PowerPoint or whatever resource you
There's
need.
some resource. Yeah. Okay, that's smart. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I almost think not knowing something makes you more personable to the person, like to the student.
Yeah.
Because they seem to say, "Oh, the tutor's here, I'm here."
Yeah, which is like not even that true.
Yeah, no, we're
just that they're learning it. Yeah.
Yeah, we've taken the class before.
That's really it.
That's about it.
I'm not an expert
and
by
we're
any
good in
means.
it.
Yeah.
So doesn't mean we have a doctorate in it,
No,
like
absolutely.
a teacher.
Absolutely not. And there's a lot of stuff that I've forgotten too that I need to be like, okay, wait, what was that again? So
Basically.
Whoa, I think I just clicked on a different thing. So yeah, there we go. Reflecting content.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like,
Oh, this is the you feel this, you feel
yes.
that. I thought that was an interesting concept. I don't think I've ever used something like
I
it.
haven't either. Yeah, because I feel like that's kind of like assuming things. I don't know. What do you think? You've never used anything like it?
Not really. Yeah, no, I've never like straight up just been like, you feel like this.
Yeah.
Or do you feel like this?
Sense that you feel embarrassed. Like, I don't know if I would say that to someone.
How do you think you would tweak this concept to fit with your personality in tutoring?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Maybe I would say something like, okay, like I can tell like this might be stressing you out a little bit, like I've been in your shoes kind of thing, like I've been there, like this concept is actually like super difficult, but this is what like here's what it takes to like help you understand this. Like this is what I did to help myself understand it. Maybe like because sometimes if you say things like this, it could seem like you're putting them down a little bit, like you're feeling like this, but to like be able to relate to them, I think that would help a lot.
That's fair.
Yeah. What do you think? How would you apply something like this?
I think I would go more with like emotions like stressed and frustrated. I don't think I'd be comfortable bringing up, oh, you seem embarrassed right now. Because if someone did that to me, I would get so much more embarrassed and it would just be horrible. So I think I would maybe be like, hey, that's a good place. I could apply to my tutoring sessions, I think, if I can tell they're getting a little overwhelmed because I'm just, here's this information and this and this and this and this and this. Maybe be like, step back and be like, hey, I know that might have been overwhelming. Is there a specific one of those things I stated that you'd love to talk about?
Yeah.
And just like take a step back and be like, sorry, I gave you too much. What's one?
Right.
Or
you
two.
could be like, I can tell like something I may have said has made you feel like that. Like, I'm sorry if that's the case. Like, what can we do to step back and reevaluate this or whatever?
Because our goal is to make them less stressed, not more.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes I'm like, oh shoot, am I helping?
Sometimes it's hard because, like, with the writing center, there's times someone comes in with a paper and I'm like, okay, so this is a beautiful research paper. However, you're writing a rhetorical analysis for this assignment.
Oh, so you don't want to stress them out and
So,
tell them to rewrite it, but they have to.
yeah, if they want to get a good grade on the assignment, there's sometimes you just sort of have to be like, I'm sorry, that sucks. Like, you don't say that in that wording, of course, but like,
Yeah.
it just, I had one coworker once where he could tell people to completely trash their paper, start over the research, and they left the session happy and okay with it. I don't know how he did it, but I watched it happen a few times. And I'm like,
How'd you do
just the
that?
way he would phrase stuff and the way he'd come across and his whole personality, he could just like jokingly be like, dude, honestly, let's start over. And like, he didn't say it like that. I don't know how he did it,
Right,
but
you're
it was
just
one of the
so chill
most
about it that
amazing
they were
things
just like,
ever.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I don't feel like I could do that, but I could probably do more of the, hey, I know this can be stressful and overwhelming, and then go through and list the points that they could still use. Like, but this point, you do touch on it, so let's expound this idea.
Yeah.
So find
Yeah.
the positive and the negative.
Yeah, or be like, and if you do come in like with a rough draft, I can help you, like, even if it's super rough, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just kind of like encourage them to like, okay, it's okay, but we're just gonna start over and it'll be fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. Yeah, that's interesting about working in the writing center. I've never been the best writer, so I don't know if I could be a tutor.
I mean, you could always come in and be like an MLA or APA. You just have to learn the format.
Yeah, true.
That's like mathy and sciencey
Yeah,
side of English.
for sure. Yeah, I was always a B English student, but it's okay.
That's still not bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad. But
I just glanced up and I read on the side personal and romantic relationship skills, and I was like, wait, what? Like,
yeah,
that's not what we're talking
right
about.
there. Should we click on it? No, I'm just kidding.
Be natural, fair. Okay.
Cool.
I think that's the end of that
yeah.
one. So
I think
skills
we're
and
probably
question
good.
would be our last one, right?
Questioning. Yeah, this is the last one.
How to question others.
So this one, I think it's got like sections.
I think so.
There we go. So we'll just start here. Traits of destructive questions and traits of useful questions.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So I think with the destructive questions, what type of destructive questions do you end up using?
I think the biggest one for me after I just reread point number 2, the like, you know about this, right? I've done that before and I've caught myself. And if they say no, it makes them feel like crap, And then I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like, you learned about this, right? And then they go no. And I'm like, oh, why did I just say that? Like, I could see where that could be really bad, like, because I think it's like a simple, like, elementary concept, but to them, they haven't learned it yet. So it's okay that they haven't learned it yet, obviously. So I need to stop making like those assumptions. I could see where that could be.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So
What
make
about
sure
you?
your questions don't imply assumptions.
Yeah. Like, oh, what am I doing? Yeah. I like can remember doing that actually to someone. I feel really bad now.
You learn and grow.
Yeah, like we were talking about part of the brain that made melatonin, and I was like, you know what melatonin does, right? And she didn't. And I was like, oh shoot. I was like, it's just a chemical in your body that helps you sleep. And then I felt like really bad after. But
There. But I like number 1, like don't answer just yes and no questions. Because even that, like, you know what melatonin is, right? That example, they could just say
Yeah.
yes.
You know, they
But then
said
where do you go
yes.
from there? You're like,
Then you're like,
uh,
could you explain to me what it is actually? Like,
yeah.
started somewhere else. Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
one of my entrepreneurship class actually watched a video last class, and it was a comedian saying how to do improv. And one of the things he went over was questions. He's like, okay, you can get anywhere with yes questions, but in the second they say no, you suddenly have to pause and be like, oh, and it just adds this like awkward air to it. And he was
It's
talking about
super
that,
awkward.
and it's just like this pause, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you feel
So
bad when
yes
you say,
questions, though, if they just
oh,
say this, they could just say yes to everything. You move on with life, and they actually don't know it.
for sure. Yeah. So, okay, for example, so what do you think like that we could use instead of yes or no? Like, what's a good example of what I could have done in that situation?
Um, maybe for the melatonin one.
Yeah, because her question was just what does this part of the brain do? I guess I could have just been like, it makes melatonin. It produces melatonin, is what I said. And then she looked at me a little confused, and I was like, you know what that is, right? But then I was like, oh, shoot, why did I do that? So I could have just said, like, it makes melatonin, and then explain what melatonin is at the same time.
That's fair. Maybe you could explain it without the vocab word. So, um, you said melatonin is the thing that makes you happy, right?
Helps you sleep.
Helps you sleep. I don't know these chemicals very well.
No, that's fine.
So you could even say something like, this part of the brain produces the chemical that helps you sleep. Do you by chance know what that,
Oh,
can
yeah.
you tell me what the name of that chemical is? So that way you're almost quizzing them. And if they say no, they're like, that's totally okay. So the name of it is melatonin and blah, 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 you know?
That's really smart. Yeah,
So you're
that's
almost
really
giving them
smart.
like a note card quiz without having the flashcards.
Yeah, like, can you tell me what it's called? That's cool. Okay, I like that.
So
Instead of like, do you know what that's called? Like, I'd just say like, can you tell me what that's called? Yeah.
so if that's still a yes, no question.
Yeah, that's true.
Sure.
Well, no, it's not. Because they could say I don't know, or they could give me the answer.
I guess that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could just say, what is that called?
Yeah, what is that called? Yeah.
Or you could say it's melatonin and be like, how would you personally describe that?
Yeah, true.
Or what's your personal understanding of melatonin?
Yeah.
Something like that could work too.
Yeah, because then they could be like, I actually don't know what that is. And then that'd be good. I like that.
Okay. So now traits of useful questions. So this is sort of going, the first point's going off of what we were just saying, the open-ended no, yes, no questions. So we sort of already talked about that a
Yeah, we
little.
definitely did.
I think I like number 4 though, because their perceptions, their assumptions, it's sort of opposite of what we were saying with the, like, you know this, right? It's doing the opposite. So how do you understand this? How do you view this concept?
Yeah. So you're assuming like absolutely nothing. You're
Mm-hmm.
letting them be in charge.
Yeah. So what's a way you could have let your student that we were talking about a second ago be in charge with the melatonin?
I think I could have like rerouted the conversation from the start, because it was more of me like going through each part of the brain and being like, because she just came in and she's like, I didn't really get these notes in class. Like, can you actually just tell me like what each part of the brain does? I could have just like told her like, hey, like I would recommend actually going and rewatching the lecture if you didn't get any of them, and like then coming to me like with questions, because your professor is probably going to go over like the parts that he wants you or needs you to know. and then we can revisit it. I think that's one thing I could have done. But going back to like,
That's fair. Made them feel more active.
yeah, but going back to the specific like situation, I'm trying to think of what I could have done. Yeah.
Maybe when they showed you the brain, you could have been like, well, which of these areas do you have at least a general concept of what they are supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe I assumed that she just
Or
like
something.
had no idea about anything, which might not have been the case. Like I might have just assumed that. So that would have been a good area to start, I think. Yeah. Like being like, what do you understand like so far? Or was there anything like that you were able to pick up from the lecture about this structure, and then I can fill in the blanks from there. That's good. Yeah. See, I have a question for you about number 5. In what case, this kind of like goes along with it, like asking the other person for help, in what case would you apply that, or what's like an effective way for you to apply that?
I think one way that I apply it is after I sort of cover something, like a concept or whatever, I usually do more of a like, what other questions do you have? I probably should get better at the what questions should I be asking, or where else can I help you dig deeper areas, because I usually have them ask me the question. And so I think that's a place I could improve on, actually.
Yeah, like what questions can I ask you? Yeah, because sometimes if they already have a really good understanding of it and they've been doing their studying, but they just want to come into the tutor to like get like freshen up and like have someone to study with, I feel like that's especially like important. Like sometimes for anatomy they come in just like just for the extra credit, but they've done a lot of studying on their own and they don't need help on certain things. Sometimes I'm like, okay, what do you want me to like quiz you on? What do you want to be able to like talk about?
That's fair.
Yeah, so sometimes like quizzing people, they like that as a study method, which I guess
So
you're in a
making
little
sure
bit
you
of.
understand if they need quizzed or not.
Yeah, making sure like do they have enough understanding on their own that they can explain the concepts to me, or do they need to start with me explaining it to them and then going backwards from there, if that makes sense? Like I guess that would be kind of the mirroring. So like I tell them like the understanding that I have and then ask them the question to make sure that they understand it.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, but in the writing center, I feel like it's a little bit more difficult.
That's fair. Yeah, that's one I'll have to ponder on because I'm not having a good one come to mind.
Mm-hmm. No, that's totally fine. Because I don't even know how I would apply that with editing papers either.
Yeah.
Definitely something to think about.
I mean, I could always do something like, what areas are you struggling with?
Yeah.
That leads me into asking more questions without directly asking which questions I need to be asking.
Right. True. Yeah.
So. Sweet.
And then how powerful are your questions? I don't know, I just thought these examples of the powerful questions were pretty good.
I like the what will you do and when for like an end of a session.
Mm-hmm.
Give them a game plan of how they're going to do better.
Yeah, true. I like number 9. I mean, that's kind of worded a little bit weird, but like sometimes students like try to overcomplicate things. So like, what can we do to make this more simple? Like, you know, like what's going to make this more simple? Because like, obviously, like what's going on right now is like not really working. Like actually, like in chemistry, I'm like, sometimes like I try to explain it too complicated, but really like for the purpose of the class, they only need to know like a little bit. So that can be a good question to like ask myself, like, okay, Mariah, how can you make this easy?
That's fair. I like that you were asking yourself that. I think another one that could be good to ask yourself is 14. What are you learning from this? Because like you're even talking about tutoring sessions that you've had so far, and you can always draw some knowledge from any tutoring session, even if it went smoothly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really though.
So just
For sure.
yeah, because like if something goes perfect, like or perfect,
Yeah,
you can
it never really
always
happens.
be like, well, what made that so good? How
Right.
can I learn to implement that again?
Yeah, true.
So
Yeah, because it's like more obvious when you mess up, because then you're like, oh, not doing that again, you know? But yeah, even when you do great, it's like, okay. Yeah. Sweet. This one's kind of long. Let's see. I guess.
these are basically all just open-ended questions
Right.
for the powerful questions, because I think what they're saying about powerful questions is it's just a way to get the student to be thinking on their own and involved.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
even maybe more involved than you are, even if you're being engaged, because they're talking more.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I feel like they should be more involved than you are, to be honest. Yeah. And also I feel like they keep like the flow going. Like sometimes students come in just like not knowing like what they need help with, and it's hard to like get the ball rolling. But these would definitely help with that, I think.
That's very true.
Cool. Well, I think we've done it.
Sweet.
This, yeah, this automatically recorded, so I think it should be good when we stop it. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much for like meeting with me with all that crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was talking with Timothy, and he was just like, no, that's totally fine. Because I offered to like meet with him tomorrow morning, but he's like, I'm just gonna be so tired because he works like crazy late. So he was able to do like an alternate assignment last time for this, and so he's like, I'm just gonna talk to Tom or what's his name, Rob, and do that again. Yeah, not Tom. So I'm gonna message Rob as well and let him know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Everything's all
Let
squared
me
away.
know if you have problems turning it in again. Videos on Canvas are a pain.
I know, yeah. I ended up uploading it to YouTube, so I'll probably just do that again. So
Probably easiest.
yeah, and then I just put the YouTube link on there, so, and it worked, but yeah.
Sweet.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the discussion. I learned a lot, honestly, so thank you so much. I
Same.
appreciate it. Yeah, it was
Yeah, of
great.
course. Enjoy
Okay,
your
have a good
weekend.
night. Yeah, you too. Okay,
Okay. Bye.
bye.